today's Partner Academy Live webcast. You are listening to the Time to Thrive webcast series presents Sales, Mastering the Art of Getting Indoors. Welcome to the next in our monthly webcast series dedicated to helping you increase sales excellence and help your career thrive. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific for a new session dedicated to improving your sales performance. You can also participate on Twitter Live at #TimeToThrive16. Our presenter today is Frontz, who is a facilitator and a sales guide for 95.5. Now, without any further delay, it's my pleasure to hand it over. Sean, you now have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much, Debbie. And let's, as she said, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we do have people on the session today from around the world. A lot of different roles, as we saw there, a lot of different specialties. And so I am very, very, very excited to be with you all today. This has been I'm proud to have been invited back to Time to Thrive. And so very, very, very active partnership with Microsoft. I had a chance to present it at last year's World Partner Conference, and so always, always excited to be working with Microsoft and the great folks here. Today, as Debbie just said, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about sales. A lot of us in that sales role, inside sales, marketing, sales support, implementation, everybody on the phone in every role that you're in is going to have an active part of this process today. And we're going to talk about one of the key aspects of sales, which either makes you or breaks you if you think about it, which is mastering the art of getting in the door. So often, if you go back years ago in business, people knocked on our doors a lot. We could sit back and answer the phone and take orders, and I just don't think we're there anymore. And so for most of us, we've got to go out and create that business. We got a new product offering like Microsoft 8, and we've got to go to market with that, and so we've got to go drum up that business and make it happen. And so today we're going to talk about this concept of getting indoors. Now, if you think about getting indoors, it's called a lot of different things. You see a lot of different names, and there's so many books written on these topics in terms of demand creation and initiating new opportunities and being called a hunter-gatherer, new business development, filling the funnel, lots and lots of different names that it's been called over time. And what's interesting about that is when you think about it, those that do it well simply just refer to it as making business happen. I wake up today, I go out, and I make business happen. And so what we're going to focus on is how do you do that? How do you do that in today's world in terms of having to go to market, knock on people's doors, obviously hypothetically, it might be sending them an email, making a phone call, however you contact them, and get them to respond to you. And so if you think about it, we're going to be talking about some mindsets, some ways of thinking about things. And one of them we're going to challenge is this concept of filling the funnel. That was one of the things you saw on the title for the art of getting in the door, filling the funnel. I went out onto Bing and did some image searches, and you see here, this is just one of them. It's random in nature. It's a funnel that someone had developed for their sales approach. Here's another one here, just again, different wording, but you see that concept of funneling, if you will. Here's a third one that I found, which I found this one really interesting just because of the numbers. If you take a look at the numbers, they had prospects at the top at like 742 prospects that month. And if you look at the bottom, they had 7 closes. If you think about that, that's actually a 1% close rate. Now, I don't know personally any of you on the phone today, but I'm pretty assured in my belief that none of you would be happy with a 1% close rate. And actually, if you look at those numbers, they actually closed 8, but only 7 of them paid for it. So that one that didn't pay for their goods and wares probably took all the profit away from the 7 that did actually pay for it. It's all based on what we believe is an inaccurate mindset, the wrong way to look about things. If you think about it, is sales a numbers game, or is it about focus and execution? And to us, it's not a numbers game. The whole concept of smiling and dialing and the power hour and all that stuff, it's just antiquated in its thoughts, in our belief. And so when you think about it, you think of the concept of filling a funnel. You put a lot of stuff in the top, and throughout the process, very few come out the bottom. Well, that's an interesting mindset, and it means we have to do a whole bunch of work all the time, and it never stops. One of the problems of being in sales is as soon as the month is over, the next one starts. As soon as the quarter is over, the next one starts. As soon as the year is over, the next one starts, and you never, ever get a day off. That's because we're looking at it the wrong way. And so what we're going to do today is kind of challenge some current state thinking and say, you know what? What happens if you actually turn that funnel upside down? What happens if sales is not about a numbers game, but it's about focus and execution? And you do it at a world-class level, and therefore you put few deals in the top of that funnel, and what comes out of the bottom is a lot of business. It's one of the models that we believe in at 95.5 because it's the way we do business. Overwhelmingly, our business comes from current business. That's that funnel fanning out on the bottom that you do business, and that business brings you more business, not only with those customers because you execute well, but with others because of the brand and the reputation that you begin to build. And so as we look at this time we're going to spend together, our end in mind for today is for each of you individually to make a decision if your current thinking about what it takes to get in the door needs to be challenged or not. And maybe you think about this the right way already, and you've adapted to the modern mindsets. Maybe you've got that insight already, and you can help bring others in your organizations and partnerships up. So it's up for you. It's a decision that you have to make based on a presentation that we make. So by the end of our time today, we want you to think about that and just say, hey, do I need to kind of just look at things a little bit differently when I think about this? And so when we think about this concept, let's just call it new business development, making business happen, getting out there and making deals work. New business development to us requires an artful balance. And I use that word artful specifically because if you've seen this done well, if you are one of those 5%ers or you've been blessed to have one in your partnership or you've worked with one or you are one, it is literally an art form when you see it done well. Literally an art form. You know, there are times where people say and do things that I'm around that just literally, I don't want to be corny or anything, but man, it almost brings a tear to my eye because they are so good at what they do. And there's nothing aggressive about them, and it's truly just about going out there and creating great business together. Well, when you get to that level, of an artful form, it requires the perfect balance of advocating, leading quickly to inquiry. Now think about those two words, and it's been said a bunch of different ways. Stephen Covey at Franklin Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. That is inquiry before advocacy. Doctors diagnose before they prescribe. Your mom always said you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. And so doing good business together is about understanding the client. But what we're talking about here is that you got to go out and create that business. I can't knock on your door and then just listen. I actually have to say something to intrigue you to want to be involved in the dialogue. And so new business development actually says, well, I've got to say something. That's the advocation part. I've got to advocate a position statement, thought leadership, something about the market, and then quickly move off of that and go right into my inquiry skills. Go right into my questioning and listening to be able to understand you and make a decision if we should do business together. And so as we look at this, I went out onto Bing just to see, current state, and did an image search for the word salesperson. And I welcome you to do the same thing later. Not now, because hopefully you're paying attention. But if you look on the screen, this is what comes up. These are the images that are out there on Bing when you type in the word salesperson. Look at that. That's how people see us. That's not salespeople putting those things up there. That's actually probably people that are making fun of us putting those images up there with that quirky-looking grin and that used car mentality. And it's a negative personification of who we are and what we do. And so when you think about it, when you think about those being some of the images that come to mind for salesperson, we really have to think about that. We really have to be cognizant of that as we go knocking on doors. Because as I knock on your door as a professional, loving what I do, believing what I do, I knock on your door because I think there's good reason that we should be talking. I think I can help you. So I stick out my hand in my suit and tie, and that's the image that I think that you see that's entering into your mind. But in reality, what's happening is your mind is translating that, and what your mind sees are those images that we just showed you from the Bing search. You see me as a salesperson. You see me as someone that's going to do something to you, that makes money off of selling you something. And that's the reality that we have to deal with when we think about developing new business and getting in the door. We have a lot to overcome. And it's not usually because the people on this phone, it's because of the people that give sales a bad name, because they truly do look at sales that way. And so when you think about it, because we have so much to overcome, we want to keep things really, really simple. Let's just get back to fundamentals and simplify this process of getting in the door. And so what we're going to do is be able to look at answering one question. That's it, one question. As I knock on your door, I only have one question that needs to be answered. And that question is simply, should we be talking? And so as I knock on your door, hypothetically speaking, I only have one question in the back of my mind, which is, should you and I be talking about business? And so as we look at this concept of should we be talking, we look at it through the standpoint of saying, hey, we know really well, we know what we do well inside of our business. We know it. We're trained on it. We're focused on it. Many of you have lived it for many, many years of your career. You know what you do well. What we need to discover is what the customer wants, needs, and values. And we're going to talk about that today, how we actually do that. And once we figure those two things out, all we're simply trying to decide is should we be talking? Because I know what I do well. I think I know what you want, need, and value. There's a reason we should be talking. Let's just get together for 5 minutes to decide if that's true. And so that's the way we're going to look at this art of getting in the door. And it's a different mindset for a lot of people. And so let's talk about this. And so we think about answering the question of getting in the door and should we be talking. We look at it through kind of 3 different levels. Now, this would be an entire day's class in and of itself. And so we talk about prioritizing. So often if you knock on someone's door and you say, hey, why are you on the phone with that customer? There's a whole bunch of them you could be on the phone with. Why that one right now? Why did you pick that one? You come up with all kinds of different answers. Well, all kinds of different answers aren't acceptable. There needs to be a formalized process of how we prioritize those people that we call on. Now, that's a study for a whole nother day. What we're going to focus on here today is the concept of preparing to knock on the door. And then once we prepare, there's a whole nother series on personalizing, the skill and art of getting referrals, inside referrals, and how it impacts your business up to 80% greater likelihood of getting the appointment when you've got an inside referral. So today, we're going to focus on this concept of preparation. What does it mean to prepare to go knock on doors? And the big idea, as we said, is really pretty simple. The reality is that nowhere in the entire sales process, from beginning to end, from the very first time you knock on the door till the time that you seal the deal, if you think about it that way, nowhere in that entire process is the few minutes more important than right now. Right now, what you say, the communication that comes out of your mouth in that first 30 seconds or a minute is going to determine the likelihood of your relationship, either going forward or ending. And so if you think about it, we're doing a tremendous amount of preparation for really 1 or 2 minutes of execution. If you do this preparation well, it will lead you to get in the door, and then you move into your experience and expertise in interviewing the customer and really building a good business case. And so we're going to talk about the need to prepare for those vital few moments. And so preparation to us involves really 4 things. And some of these, again, some of you, as you hear these, again, with a couple hundred people on the phone from all over the world, some of you, when you hear these, you're going to go, duh. And I'm going to welcome that duh, and I'm going to challenge that duh, because research is showing that we simply do not do some of these things. As basic as they are, The current research is showing that we don't do them, and we're going to talk about why that is. And so 4 pretty simple things we're going to talk about in terms of preparation. Now, again, this is before you even consider going out to the market and knocking on someone's door. First, the concept of researching the company that you're going to call on. Now, again, some people are going, seriously? That's what you're going to tell me? Yeah, it is. It's what we're going to spend some time on because overwhelmingly we find people not doing it. We're then going to talk about researching the people that you're going to call upon. We're going to talk about a mindset shift of moving off your solution. And then the last thing is taking that shift, moving off of your solution, and developing some framing questions to hopefully allow you to get access to that person and get in the door as we talk about it. And so as we move forward looking at these, the very first piece of this is researching companies. And so you see here on the screen some of the greats, and some of them have been around for a long time, some of them are relatively new, and they're constantly changing. So what we're going to talk about today is not specifically the how do you do it, it's the do it. Just get out there and do it. It was actually at the Worldwide Partner Conference this year up in Canada. We had a really neat session, jam-packed house. We had to turn away like 80 people that wanted to sit in it, where we had a panel of executives, 3 executives, and we had hundreds, there's probably 150 salespeople in the room, firing questions at them for an hour. We said, you know, what better way to learn what they want than to ask them? Just talk to them directly. And it was interesting because one of the people was talking about the reality that people sit in front of her and ask her the most basic questions that they should know if they're sitting in front of her as an executive. And she said, there is nothing in today's world more infuriating than someone who dares sit in front of me and has not done the proper research. You're done. I don't care how good your product or service is. I'm not going to talk to you because you haven't done what you should have done before you got to me. There is simply no excuse in today's world with the access to information, with the ability to make a few clicks and get an entire 10K or a 10Q or a 20F if you're in foreign situations. All of that information is right in front of you to do basic research in terms of how the company is doing versus its competition. How's the marketplace performing? What are the pressures that they're experiencing? All of that is right there at your fingertips, yet most of us are not doing it as well as we should. So once we think about researching the company, now we need to shift and say, okay, I've got some background on the company. I understand what's going on in their world. Now let me think about the people I'm actually going to call upon. Same exact thing. When you think about our access through Facebook and LinkedIn and just doing, there's a simple Bing search for me right there. Look how much stuff is there. There's videos on there of me. Everything about me to ever want to know is right there on the internet, good or bad. But you can find out a lot about me and what I think about and what I follow and what I do simply by doing research on me. Again, that same woman in Canada this year said that she is so much more likely to take an appointment from someone if they are in a shared LinkedIn group with her. Think about that. If they are in a shared group with her. And so she's out there focused as a CTO, focused on the world around her and what's going on. What greater place to be than in a group on LinkedIn that's focused on that? And if she gets an input from someone saying, hey, I'd like to meet with you, she quickly does her research and says, wait a minute, you're following some of the same groups as me? We think alike? She's so much likelier to take that appointment versus someone who's not connected to her that way. Again, I'm preaching to the choir when I talk about social media and the internet in today's world, but I'm not preaching to the choir because many people are not doing it. I'm not saying you specifically, but research shows that people simply aren't doing the necessary research in today's world. And so when we think about this concept of research, many of you are sitting there, you look just like this poor guy here, going, you know I should do the research, I just don't have time. There's so many things going on that it's one of those things that I just don't do. And so I understand that, but you need to understand why you have that paradigm or that mindset. If you think about it, it goes right back to that funnel. We feel we don't have time because we're focused on so many new opportunities at once and doing so little research on them that we put a lot of opportunities into the top of that funnel. That's a mindset that has been around forever. I blogged one time, a blog saying the funnel is dead. And I actually was antagonizing the sales world by saying it's an archaic way of thinking. You wouldn't believe the fury of responses by people saying, no, it's not dead, it's da-da-da-da-da. And I was literally getting exactly what I wanted from them, is a solid belief that they're willing to stand behind, that you need to put tons in to get a little out. I'm tired of doing that. I'm tired of doing that much work to put tons in. And so when we think about this concept of research, do fewer, do them better. Do fewer and do them better, so that when I do call upon you, I know everything there is to know about you. Matter of fact, I know more about you and your company than anybody else who is dare going to ring your phone today or knock on your door, because that's the way I handle myself as a professional. I would never ask to take some of your time if I have not done the time on my side to know about you, to understand, again, what I do well. I know that part. Now I've tried to, through research, figure out what you need, want, and value. I believe there's a reason we should be talking. All I want to do is find out if you share that belief. And I could be wrong. But in 5 minutes, I'll bet we can make that understanding. Is it worth that time to meet? And if I've done my research, the likelihood of you saying yes goes up so significantly it's not funny. And so we've got to get to the world when it comes to research where there just are no excuses. That you literally separate yourself away from the competition just in the way you prepare to go out and knock on doors. That if you think about 20 of you lined up on that CEO or CTO or CIO's door, you're all going to get a chance to knock. And you went right down that line of people and said, hey, what do you know about this company? And you knew 10 times more about them. Hey, what do you know about this person? Do you know this about her? Do you know that about her? Do you know that? And they don't know that. And you literally beat your chest going, you know what? I've done it. I know more about this person and why we should be meeting than anybody else who's going to knock on her door. And that's what will earn you them getting you an invitation to come in and speak to them. And so when it comes to research company or research people, we just got to take the excuses off the table. Do fewer, do them better. It's about execution, not about a numbers game. And so once we do those two things, we're ready to think about moving off our solution. And so at this point in time, we have to get kind of real with each other. And so if we are completely, gut level, completely honest with each other, and we ask a simple question, what is it that most of us like to talk about more than anything else in this world? What is it that most of us like to talk about more than anything in this world? What do you think the answer is? Now, we're all on silence, but I'm hoping and praying that a lot of you say, me and my products. That's what I love to talk about, because indeed, that's what most of us talk about. Now, if you're sitting there saying, that's not true about me, you have to really challenge the way you're thinking about this. Because when we ask executives, and we have got an entire series of video interviews with executives, we got so tired of hearing that from salespeople that we said, well, wait a minute, maybe they're right. Maybe they aren't doing this anymore. And so we went out and started interviewing executives, and all the videos are on 95.5 and our LinkedIn site. You can see them all. We went out and said, hey, talk to us. What are you seeing in today's world? And they overwhelmingly still say that 90+% of people that sit in their offices and talk about themselves, talk about their products, talk about their services, talk about their company. Here's our global reach. Here's what we got here. This is what it can do for you. And they're tired of it. And so if you're sitting there saying to yourself, this is not me, maybe you're one of those percent, and if you are, help us spread the word. But we really have to think about it, because we go through so much training. And there's so much pressure on us as sales professionals to make the numbers, to make the goals on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, that without even knowing it sometimes, we succumb to that pressure, we go into what we call our default gear, what we know best, and we just end up talking about ourselves. I've seen it happen time and time and time again. And so when we talk about moving off our solution, that's what we're focused on. When we're going to go out and knock on their door, I've researched your company, I've researched you as a person, now I'm going to move off my solution. And so it begins with our mindset, with our mental map, if you will. And so when you think about a mindset is a belief system, a way that we look around at the world around us. And for many people, many people, thousands, millions of people, their mindset is that if I talk about me and my product enough, I will find people that are interested in buying. And you know what's true? It's true. It is. That's an approach a lot of people take, that if I find enough people to talk to about me and my products and services, some of them will buy. They will. But man, is it a lot of numbers that you got to push through. And so we go out and we do product demos and we do this and we do that. We've even trained them, the people that we're trying to sell to expect that. Well, can you just do a demo? Can you just send me some information? They ask for it.
Hey, Sean?
Yes, ma'am.
We do have a question in the queue.
All right, what's the question?
So Richard is asking, so research-focused attacks rather than saturation bombing?
Yes. I love everything about that except the concept of attack. And I know exactly where Richard's coming from. And so Richard, that's exactly what we're saying. Now, again, we've got some folks on here from marketing. And so does that mean we don't do broad-based marketing in that kind of carpet bombing mentality? Not at all. Not at all. But do we think we should get together with marketing and focus on the concepts we're going to talk about here? Absolutely. And the companies that we work with that do it best, marketing and sales come together. In so many organizations today, there's a chasm between marketing and sales. I've had people literally, as I'm attacking their decks, I'm looking at their decks that they're about ready to walk into the customer and present. I'm like, why is that in there? Why is that in here? What is this? Well, that's the stuff we got from marketing. That's what they tell us we got to use. Or they get a deck prepared by marketing and they got to do tons of changes to it. And so we're looking for that partnership that we both approach the customer in the same way. Marketing plays a huge part in today's business. So we're not going to take away from that, but when marketing has done its work, that's when we then come in and get really focused on that, what Richard's calling an attack. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely more about focus and execution from that standpoint. And so as we think of this concept of moving off your solution, that's what we're focused on when we talk about the art of getting in the door. And so let's think about this. And again, it's a paradigm shift for a lot of us. It's a mindset shift. But it really is pretty simple. It really is pretty simple. Many times what we find is that people overcomplicate this process. And so you think about it simplistically. What would a business person have to hear you say that would make them want to welcome you in? What would a business person have to hear you say that would make them want to welcome you in? So when you think about the art of getting indoors, it's really in that vital moment, that flash point, where something comes out of your mouth that makes a person say, come in. Absolutely. There's a reason we should be talking. And so what is it? What is it that they would have to hear you say? And if you think about it, I can guarantee you it's not, hi, my name is Sean from 95.5 and we do sales transformation. That's not what someone would have to hear for them to say, oh, great, you know what, I was expecting you. I woke up this morning and thought to myself, I would like to buy some sales transformation from 95.5. I'm so happy that you happen to show up on my doorstep today. That's not what they're thinking about. So if I'm going to go out there and knock on their door, I've got to get out of my own world and get into their world. And so if you think about it, what would a person have to be experiencing? When we think about a business person, what would they have to be experiencing in their business world to even have the slightest desire to speak to me? What is it? And we got to think about that, not in just a little bit, that I've done my research on the way to their door, but I have done it extensively. I know what they're thinking about and what I would need to say to be able to connect with them on a business level and have them say, you know, Sean, we should be talking. Yeah, it's worth a half an hour of my time. Come on in, let's talk. And so that's what we're going to focus on. And so it's not, and again, if I offend someone, please let me apologize now. But this is not, hey, what keeps you up at night? Those are the kind of statements that earn us those Bing reputations that you saw earlier. That's not what we're talking about and being able to understand. What this is being able to do the work that we're going to show you in the next 5 or 10 minutes to be able to say this. And so imagine being able to get that first connection with a CIO or a CTO or even a CEO. And you're able to say something like, you know, hey, in speaking with other CTOs, there's 3 common business issues that consistently seem to be top of mind. First and foremost, there's the reality that they want to optimize their current infrastructure as they find it's not aligned with the needs of their business, and valuable resources are often misallocated. Another thing they're struggling with is the need to reduce overall IT costs since budgets are shrinking. They struggle to do more with less, and it means that day-to-day operations are continuing to suffer. And security is often a significant challenge, especially with bring your own device in place today like it is. There's so many different types of devices connecting to networks. There's uncertainty about their ability to detect and respond to disastrous intrusions in a timely manner. Are these things that you're struggling with as well? And so that's what we're talking about, that message being that you connect with a business person and they go, wow, that's exactly what's going on inside my mind. Those are the things that I need to figure out because you know what? I'm getting killed in terms of my budget. People still look at IT as a cost versus an investment, and my budget's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and every day they're saying, well, get rid of this, get rid of that. We don't need those people. Outsource this. I've got people knocking on my door going, well, I want to bring in my iPhone. I want to bring in my BlackBerry. I want to bring in my Droid. I want to bring in all this stuff, and why can't it connect? Well, it can't connect because I can't keep security of my system in place. That's why it can't connect. Those are the things that are driving me crazy. That's what I want to talk about. Yes, let's talk. And if you think about it, that's the messaging that we've got to be able to create. But where does it come from? And so there's a turn-of-the-century psychologist, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the 20th century, that made a statement. It actually goes back. I did some research trying to find the exact source of this, and it's funny. So many of the sources go to Bruce Lee, the famous martial artist. I'm not thinking it goes to Bruce. A lot of this actually goes all the way back to some biblical references. But this psychologist made a statement that says, as you think, so shall you be. Let me let that sit for a second. As you think, so shall you be. So if you think, if your current mindset is that all I have to do is get some great materials together, a great PowerPoint, get the appointment to be able to do my demo and show you what I've got and show you how I've done it well with others and give you the white papers and give you the referrals, if that's what you think leads to a sale, then that's exactly what you will do. You'll be focused on you, your products and services, what you've done in the past, and that's what you'll talk about. Whether you mean to or not, that's your mindset. It will be produced in reality. We think differently. And so when you think about it, when we talk about beliefs, we believe we've got to stop focusing on me. Stop focusing on my business, on my products and services, all the greatest things in the world that I have to offer you, and get out of our own head and literally get into the head of our customers. Think like they think. Whatever level they're in, how can I think like that person? And so if you simplify it, just step back for a second and say, what would a business person have to be experiencing? Have to. There's no question about it. They would have to be concerned with this for them to even have the slightest desire to speak with you. What is that? And be able to think about it in a very synergistic, comprehensive way. And so what we're thinking about is getting out of our head and getting into their head and thinking about their business in three direct ways. We want you to consider three things. And we're actually going to give you a form, a tool, for being part of this event today. In your download section, don't do it now, just stay focused here, but in your download section later, there's a form literally referred to as Move Off Your Solution that's going to help you and a team of people do what we're focused on here. And so we want you to think about three things: issues, evidence, and impact. Issues, evidence, and impact. And so when we talk about issues, before we knock on their door, if we're thinking about getting in the door, let's prepare ourselves to talk about them and their world versus us and our world. Now that's hard. That is not just a fly by that statement and keep going. Because think about the pressures that we face on a daily, weekly, quarterly, and annual basis to perform. The numbers aren't here. We get into a meeting Monday morning, and the boss sits us down and says, hey, the numbers aren't here. Go do more, do more, do more. Make that phone ring. Get out there and get some business. All those pressures are on us. And so when we go out, it's so simple, so easy to be focused on us and what we have to push versus thinking about the customer and getting them to pull. And so let's think about their world. First, in terms of business issues. What are the business issues that they're currently facing? Think about it. If I were to call you and I would want you to invite me into the conversation, what would be the business issues that you would have to be facing in order to want to talk to me? Not about my products or services, but about what I can do for your business. And so we're not talking about one or two or three of them. We're talking about 20 or 30 of them, an exhaustive list of business issues. Not my list, not marketing's list, not implementation's list, all of our lists, because we all have different insights. And so we all sit down and we do this exercise together. The entire office, for some of you that have smaller partnerships. Marketing, salespeople, implementation, inside, outside, the partners themselves, everybody sit down and think about it. Hey, as we go out to market and we start knocking on doors, what are the business issues that people have to be experiencing to want to have a conversation with us? And you list them exhaustively. Not 2, 3, 4 and say, okay, that's a good list, let's go. No, 20, 30. I've seen some of them be pages long because that's how many business issues that we can address. And so when we think about it, what are the problems that they're facing? What are all of the business issues that they could be experiencing that would lead them to want to have what we offer in terms of a business solution? Once we get the issues, we move past that, and we start thinking about evidence. Now, when we talk about evidence, I want you to think of yourself like a doctor or a lawyer. You're a doctor, and someone comes in and sits down on your table, and you've got to make a diagnostic. You've got to tell them. Let's say it's not good news. Let's say you're going to tell this person that you're believing that they've got cancer or just something. It's not good. Are you just going to have them sit down and take a piece of information and say, oh, that's plenty of evidence, I think you've got cancer? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to study and research and diagnose and test. And you're going to think about every different way things could be showing up before you're willing to make that diagnostic. Think about a lawyer going into court. They don't prepare a little bit of evidence. They prepare so much evidence that they're going to win in front of that judge, because there's another team presenting evidence as well, and I've got more evidence than you. I'm willing to stick my reputation on the line and go to court and battle you over the evidence that I've collected. That's what we want you to think about. For each of those business issues, you've just identified in that first step, what does the evidence look like inside of their business? So if you, Mr. Hospital IT developer, if you had this issue going up inside of your storage, this is how it would show up. You would have this going on, you'd have that going on, this would be, what are the numbers? What are the metrics? What are the reports that are being generated? How would it show up inside of their business if indeed they needed you? And so when we think about business evidence, what would you see? Let's say you could just go in and look around, snoop around, walk around and listen into the IT meetings, listen into the operational meetings. What would you hear them saying? What would they be complaining about? Whose forehead would be flat from pounding it into the wall every day, dealing with things? That's the type of evidence that we're looking at. How would it show up inside of their business? And then lastly, and most importantly, is this concept of impact. If they were facing that issue, and it showed up in terms of the evidence that you know that you would see, what would be the business impact? This is what separates the wheat from the chaff. This is what separates those that get this from those that don't. People, business people, want to talk about business impact. We've got to think about what are the issues they'd be facing, how would that show up inside of their business, and what would be the ultimate business impact. What is it costing their business to have this issue? So when their storage is not going the way that it should be, what is it, in dollars and cents, not in hypotheticals, in dollars and cents, what's it cost? When they are still operating on an older version of Windows and you're trying to position Windows 8, what issues would they be facing on a daily basis that would make them say, yeah, I want to spend thousands of hard-earned dollars updating my system? what would the issues be? What would the evidence be when you see someone turn on their computer and it takes 10 minutes for it to turn on and turn off because the Windows files are so corrupted, the registry is outdated and corrupted, and all that crap where Windows 8, boom, it's on. Well, what would the impact of that be when they're struggling and their systems are breaking down and they're getting fatal blues? Think about those kind of things. What is it costing the business to have the issue that you know that they're having? Business people will take action, will find budget when the impact is big enough to them. I love it when people say there's no budget. Well, that just means we don't have a big enough impact because budgets are allocated hypothetically. I sit down with my business and say, okay, I got $4.5 million to spend. I'll give $800,000 to this company. I'll give $800,000 to marketing. I'll give $300,000 to IT. Once the budgets are gone, they're gone. That was a hypothetical allocation of resources. If I've got someone sitting inside of me showing that they can give me an 80% ROI on an investment on Windows 8, and I've got some of that money aligned for marketing, and marketing is going to give me a 20% return on investment, I think I'm going to reallocate those funds. So one of the reasons people go to that, oh, we don't have budget, is because they've already allocated those funds. But if we can build the business impact big enough, they will find the funds. Think about yourself as a person. You might not have a line item in your budget for your household, but if something big came up that was a significant impact to you or your family, you'd find the money. We just don't do a good job in sales at getting to that business impact. And so what does all of this look like? How would it look? So this is the tool, part of the tool that we have given to you to be able to download. And this is one that we've worked with a partner of ours to create. So on that first column, you see a list of problems. What are the issues? What are the problems they're facing, the results they're looking for? This is a tiny little snapshot of this tool. It goes on for pages because this team took the time to do this tool well, and they've got all of those issues. Okay, well, if they're facing this issue, look at cost reduction. We'll go over what is the evidence, how does it show up inside their business, and then go over to business impact and look at all of that business impact. As we said, there's a process or a strategy for filling this thing out. And so do this work with a lot of great minds. Again, we saw so many neat roles on this webcast today. There was marketing, there was support, there was implementation, there was sales management, there were partners. You name it. All of those people belong in this tool. Well, I'm in implementation. I'm not really in sales. No, you're in sales. You're in sales. Get your head in here and help us think about this, because in implementation, you may see business impact that I don't see. And so we need to create synergy in creating these tools. Secondly, invest the right amount of time. This is one of those things where there's an investment of time up front that pays dividends forever. Literally forever. Once you do this and you do it well, it does not change unless your product changes or the market changes. And so it is worth, if a team came to me and said, hey, Sean, I'm in a partnership of this level, and I've got 8 people, and I'm thinking about taking an entire day out of business, knowing that's going to cost a lot of money, and dedicate it to this tool. Do you think that'd be smart? I would kiss you. I would literally reach out and kiss you and say, oh, you get it. Is it worth a day? It's worth 4 days if it needs to be, because this investment of time up front yields dividends for a long, long, long time. And so when we think about it, we've got to have a shift in mindset that if we're trying to get into doors, that investment of time up front, as we said, this is the big idea. That investment of time up front to get this messaging down is priceless. In that first 30 seconds or a minute, what comes out of your mouth as a sales professional is going to determine for me as a business person as to whether I should have a conversation with you or not. If it's about you, your company, your products, and your services, I'm not sure that I want to have a conversation with you. If it's about me and the issues and evidence and impact that I'm facing, let's talk. And so once we move off our solution, the last step is to develop these framing questions. As we said earlier, if you think about that language, when I said this is, and I communicated that language to you, that language comes right off of this tool. we get ourselves out of our world and we think about their world. And if we do that, we can come up with language that allows us to have better business dialogues with business people about their business. Now, there's a key word that repeats itself several times inside that message, and I've highlighted it in purple there in case you couldn't see it. Can we, as a team, can you as an individual, can you as a business dedicate yourselves to having better business dialogues, dia, two, not mono, one, not a monologue, I've seen lots of those, dialogues with business people about their business. I have seen lots of people have IT conversations. That's not what this is about. Very few people, very few business people with business budgets wake up in the morning saying to themselves, I can't wait to have IT conversations today. They just don't do it. They don't sit and think about that. What they think about is their business, and that's how we've got to be able to communicate with them. So when you look at this model, this framing question there, if you do the work and I ask you that question at the end, I can almost guarantee you that the answer is going to be yes. Because I've done the work. I know you. I've worked with enough CIOs. I've worked with enough CTOs. I've worked with enough project leaders. Whatever the position you're going into, you think about it from their point of view. I've talked with enough of you. I've partnered with enough of you. I've done enough business to know what you're thinking about. So when I create that framing question, I am 99% assured that your answer to that is going to be yes. And then that advocacy leading to inquiry then kicks over to inquiry. Talk to me about how it's showing up specifically in your business. And then I use my skills as a business interviewer, and that's a whole other topic, to really get into understand how these issues are impacting you specifically. Specifically inside of your business, how are these things showing up? And so if you think about doing the work to be done is on that tool itself. I got to do the research of the company. I've got to do the research of the people. Just simply no more excuses on that. Be the best prepared company or salesperson that's going to call on that company. Take the time, invest the time into the tool to move off of your solution and then develop those framing questions so that when I knock on that door and you pick up the phone, what comes out of my mouth is speaking directly to your business thinking, and that's what's going to get us in the door. And so when we think about this topic, our end in mind for this investment of time for you today was for you to ask yourself one specific question. Do I, as an individual, if you're a salesperson, do I, as a manager, if you're managing a sales team, do I, as an owner, need to shift my thinking about what it takes to get in the door when I'm out there trying to do business? And what we have found through thousands of people globally, we've been working with Microsoft with this content since the late 90s. And so this isn't just hypothetical. This is real world. What we find is the answer for that question for a lot of people is yes. I do. I've got to shift my thinking. I've got to think about this a different way. And so today, as we said, we just shared with you a little glimpse into this world. And so there's a question up there I want to take in a moment. Think about it from this standpoint. We said really to answer this whole question on getting indoors, there's prioritize, prepare, and personalize. And so there's a lot more thinking around this. We just wanted to give you kind of the crux since we only had you for an hour today. And so let me, that question just disappeared. Debbie, is there a question there?
No, Sean, it was a technical question, so I did answer it.
All right, fantastic. And so when you think about this concept as we wrap up here today, not only is there more thinking around just simply getting in the door, there's more thinking about our approach to business in general. As I said earlier, we have been blessed to be partners with Microsoft literally for 10, 15 years. We work with you guys. I've presented many times at the World Partner Conferences, and we do direct training with you. Mike DePoyen at Blue Granite was actually the Microsoft Partner of the Year last year, and he's a huge client of ours. Loves what we do and the impact we've had on his team. We've got some base camps specifically coming up for Microsoft. These are not public where there's a lot of people coming in. These are specifically tailored to Microsoft partners and offered through the partner network. You see some dates that are on the screen, and for you guys that took the time out of your busy schedules to come here, there's close to 200 of us on the phone today, we've got an ability to offer you a huge discount because you've invested this time today. And so it's $12.95 for partners to be able to come to those sessions. They're in 4 different locations in the United States. If there's a global need, we'll address those global needs as well. Just let us know that. If you sign up for the event through the process I'm going to share with you, we're actually going to take a $350 savings off of that and offer it to you at a price only for people that have registered for this event. No one else can get that price. And so to do that, you're going to go into your dashboard on your calendar replay, and there's going to be some links in there for you to be able to download the information, and we'll communicate that to you. And so we know who you are in terms of taking the time to invest in building your skills, invest in what we do as Microsoft partners to get better and develop more business for ourselves and for Microsoft. And so with that, let me turn it back over to Debbie. Debbie, why don't you go ahead and wrap up and get these folks out of here and back into their world so they can go knock on some doors.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. And I just wanted to mention we don't have that download document available right now. So
okay.
To check back with their dashboard later, is that where they'll be able to find it?
Yes, it should be in their dashboard where they go in to be able to download things from this event, and so we'll make sure that that's there.
Okay, yep. Yeah, there was some confusion. We don't have it here in the live meeting room, so I just wanted to clarify. So thank you, Sean. Okay. So, folks, let's continue the discussion. Join us on our Sales Specialist group on LinkedIn after the webcast, where Sean Frontz will continue to answer your questions. And you can also check us out on LinkedIn. There is a link right there. What you should see coming up next on the screen here, this is a link to a short survey. We appreciate you taking a moment to fill it out prior to logging out. You're going to need to enter your email address to access the survey questions. When you're in there, our voting scale is on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. So if you've got some great information from Sean, or if you have some recommendation for future events, please, we'd love to hear from you. When you're done, be sure to click on the Submit button at the bottom to ensure that your feedback has been received. And with that, that does conclude today's Partner Academy Live webcast. Materials from today's presentation will be available internally on the Academy website. Partners are going to be able to get to the live meeting recording on the Partner Learning Center within 24 hours, as well as on your dashboard later. And with that, I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Sean, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today. You may now disconnect from the audio portion of this call.